She sat across from me at our dining table, the same table where we'd had 1,000 dinners, celebrated anniversaries, laughed until our stomachs hurt, and she told me she was in love with someone else. No trembling. No tears. Her hands were steady. That's the part I'll never forget. Daniel, I need you to really listen to me. Vanessa folded her hands on the table like she was about to present a business proposal. I've met someone. And before you say anything, it's real. What I feel for him is something I've never felt before. I looked at her. 10 years of marriage sitting between us like furniture neither of us had moved in years. His name is Marcus, she continued. And I know how this sounds. Then why say it like you rehearsed it? I asked. She blinked. I'm not rehearsing. I'm being honest with you for the first time in a long time. For the first time. She slipped that in like it cost her nothing. How long? I said. 7 months. 7 months. I had bought her a bracelet in month 5. She had kissed me and said I always knew exactly what she needed. I nodded slowly. And this Marcus, tell me about him. She almost smiled. Like she'd been waiting for that question. He's nothing like. She stopped, chose her words. He's genuine, Daniel. He looks at me and he doesn't see a lifestyle or a status. Money means absolutely nothing to him. He loves me. Just me. I let the silence sit for a moment. So he's poor, I said. Her jaw tightened. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Everything with you is financial. Everything is transactional. I've spent 10 years being a wife and feeling like an asset. I didn't argue. There was no point arguing with a story someone had already written about you in their head. What do you want, Vanessa? I want a divorce. She said it cleanly. Practiced. I want to start over with someone who values what actually matters. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman who called me crying at 2 a.m. when her father's heart surgery went sideways. The woman I carried financially for 3 years while she found herself. The woman whose name I had placed on every deed, every account, every safety net I had ever built. Because I loved her and I wanted her to always feel secure. That woman was sitting across from me telling me money meant nothing. Are you sure? I asked. Just that. 3 words. She met my eyes. Yes, Daniel. I'm sure. I nodded once. Stood up. Straightened my jacket. Okay, I said quietly. And I walked to my study, closed the door, picked up my phone, and opened Frank's number. I typed slowly, deliberately, the way you write something that cannot be untaken. Frank. Close her credit lines. Stop the payments on Gerald's medical account. Remove her from the property deed. Immediately. I set the phone face down on the desk. Then I sat back in my chair and, for the first time in 7 months, I felt something settle inside my chest. Not rage. Not grief. Clarity. She thought the hardest part was telling me. She had no idea the clock had already started. She moved out on a Tuesday. Packed 3 suitcases, the expensive ones I had bought her, kissed nothing, looked back once, and walked out of a life she had decided was beneath her. By Thursday, the walls started falling. I heard it from Frank first. Everything's done, Daniel. Clean and legal. She won't see it coming until she reaches for something that isn't there anymore. I thanked him and went back to work. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel the urge to. What I had done wasn't cruelty, it was simply removal. She had chosen to leave the umbrella. I had chosen to close it. The first call came Friday evening. My card was declined. Her voice was tight, controlled. She was trying not to sound panicked. Daniel, there must be some kind of error with the account. There's no error, I said. Silence. What did you do? I made adjustments. You're no longer on the accounts, Vanessa. Effective Wednesday morning. You can't just, Daniel, I still have expenses. Then Marcus can cover them, I said pleasantly, since money means nothing to him. She hung up. I poured myself a coffee and opened my laptop. The second call came 40 minutes later, louder this time. My father's hospital called. Her voice had cracked somewhere between the first call and this one. They said the billing account was closed. Daniel, he has a cardiology appointment next week. He needs his I know about the appointment, I said. I scheduled it. I paid for every appointment for 6 years, Vanessa. So you're punishing a sick man because of me? I paused. Let her sit in her own sentence. You told me money meant nothing, I said. You told me Marcus was genuine. You told me material things were shallow and that I was transactional. I kept my voice even. So I removed the transactions. I didn't think you'd miss them. This is cruel. No. My voice stayed flat. Cruel would have been doing this publicly. Cruel would have been calling your friends, your family, your precious Marcus and explaining exactly how long I supported everyone around you. This is private. This is clean. This is just math. Vanessa, you're so good at calling everything I do transactional, so let's be honest about the transaction that just ended. She was crying now. I had not heard her cry in 2 years. Not for me anyway. Daniel, please? Good night, Vanessa. The third blow, she discovered it herself. I know because Frank forwarded me the notification. She had logged into the property portal. Checked the deed on the house. Then the lake property. Then the apartment building I had placed her name on 4 years ago as an anniversary gift. All 3, her name, gone. I imagined her sitting there, staring at the screen, the full shape of what she had walked away from finally becoming visible. The way you only see a skyline clearly once you've left the city. She called Marcus. I don't know exactly what she said, but I know what she told him, because she called her sister that same night and her sister, God bless her, had never liked me but she liked Vanessa less for what she'd done, and she told me everything. Vanessa told Marcus about the accounts. About her father. About the properties. She told him in the way a woman tells a man when she's testing him, leaning forward, watching his eyes, waiting to see if he'll say, "It's okay, I've got you." Marcus listened to all of it. Then he asked, very carefully, very calmly, whether there was any chance Daniel would negotiate. Whether Vanessa might have access to any of the assets during the divorce process. Whether her father's estate had anything in it. Vanessa went quiet. You're asking about money, she said. I'm being practical, he said. She didn't call me that night. But I heard the silence and I knew exactly what it meant. The man who loved her for her soul had just started counting her net worth. There is a specific kind of pain that comes not from losing something, but from finally seeing it clearly. Vanessa had spent 7 months building a cathedral around Marcus Cole in her mind. Stained glass. Vaulted ceilings. Sacred and untouchable. It took him 11 days to burn it down himself. The text arrived on a Sunday morning. Vanessa showed it to her sister, who showed it to me, not out of malice, but because she was furious and needed someone else to witness it. Ness, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I feel like we rushed into this whole thing without being realistic about where we both are in life. I care about you, but I think we need space to figure out what we actually want. I don't think this is the right time for us. 43 words. 7 months. A destroyed marriage. A sick father with paused medical care. 43 words on a Sunday morning, sent at 9:17 a.m., probably before he had even finished his coffee. Her sister read it to me over the phone and then went silent. He didn't even call her, she said finally. He texted her. I said nothing. Daniel? Is she okay? I asked. The pause. Like she hadn't expected that question from me. No, she said honestly. She's not. What happened next came to me in pieces over the following days. Marcus had been renting a serviced apartment. A nice one, the kind with a concierge and a rooftop. Vanessa had been staying with him since she left. After the text, he stopped answering the door. Her key card stopped working by Monday evening. She called him 17 times. He answered once, briefly, flatly, and said he needed her to collect her things by Wednesday because his situation was changing. His situation. She had blown up a decade for a man whose feelings for her had an expiry date tied directly to her financial usefulness. Then Gerald called her. Her father. 68 years old, 1 functioning heart valve, and a medical bill that had just arrived at his assisted living facility with a red overdue stamp across the top. I know what he said because Vanessa told her sister every word, and her sister told me with a voice like gravel. He called her crying, her sister said. Daddy doesn't cry, Daniel. You know that. He called her crying, asking what happened to the account, asking if something happened to you. He assumed something happened to you because he couldn't imagine you doing this on purpose. She stopped. He asked Vanessa if you were okay, she finished quietly. I pressed my hand flat against my desk and breathed. Gerald had always treated me like a son. Proudly introduced me at every family gathering. Said once, at Christmas dinner, that he thanked God Vanessa had married a man with a spine and a soul. He had no idea his daughter had decided both were overrated. What did Vanessa tell him? I asked. She told him she'd fix it. Her sister's voice was hollow. She has no idea how. By Wednesday, Vanessa was back in her sister's spare bedroom. No Marcus. No house. No credit. No income of her own. She hadn't worked a real job in 6 years, not since I had told her she didn't need to, not since I had built enough that her comfort was something I could simply provide. She had taken that provision and called it a cage. Now she had the freedom she wanted. It looked like a single bed in a room with no curtains. I knew what was coming before she did it. Her sister warned me, not to prepare me to welcome Vanessa back, but because she thought I deserved the warning. She's going to come to the house, Daniel. I know. She's going to say she made a mistake. I know that too. The pause. Then carefully, is there someone there? With you. I was quiet for a moment. Then I said, there is. Her sister exhaled, not with judgment. With something closer to relief. Good, she said softly. You deserved better than what she gave you. You always did. Vanessa came on a Friday evening. I saw her car pull into the driveway from the upstairs window. She sat in it for 4 minutes before she got out, I counted. She had dressed carefully. Done her hair. She was holding herself with the posture of someone pretending to be more certain than they were. She walked to the front door. And knocked. From downstairs, I heard Rachel's quiet footsteps cross the hallway. I heard the door open. And then, silence. The kind of silence that happens when 2 women look at each other and understand everything without a single word. Rachel told me later that Vanessa's face didn't collapse all at once. It went in layers, like a building losing its floors one by one. First the careful composure. Then the rehearsed confidence. Then something underneath that was just raw, unguarded shock. Rachel had answered the door in a simple white shirt, hair loose, holding a book with her thumbs still marking the page. She looked like someone who lived there, because she did. Had for 4 months. Quietly, completely, without performing it for anyone. That, more than anything, is what broke Vanessa's prepared speech before it even started. I'm here to see Daniel, Vanessa said. Rachel nodded once. No hostility. No performance. I'll get him, she said simply, and walked away from the door without closing it, the way you do in a home where you're not afraid of who's outside. I came downstairs slowly. Vanessa was standing in the doorway, not quite inside, not quite outside. Suspended. I stopped a few feet from her and put my hands in my pockets. She looked at me like she was searching for the man she thought she had left behind. The one who would be hollowed out. Diminished. Waiting. I looked back at her like what I was, someone who had grieved, healed, and moved forward without making noise about any of it. Daniel. Her voice broke on just my name. Vanessa, I said evenly. She glanced toward the hallway where Rachel had disappeared. Who is she? Someone who matters to me. The words landed without cruelty, but they landed. I made a mistake. She said it quickly, like she'd been holding it so long it came out pressurized. Marcus, he wasn't who I thought. He wasn't, Daniel, he left. He just left. He texted me and I know, I said. She blinked. You know. I know everything that happened, Vanessa. I've known most of it as it happened. She shook her head, not in anger, in disbelief. Then you know I was wrong. You know I made a terrible mistake and I lost everything because I believed someone who didn't deserve it, and I know that, Daniel, I know. What do you want? I asked. Quietly. Directly. She met my eyes. I want to come home. 4 words. The same 4 words that would have, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, maybe even 2 months ago, cracked me straight down the middle. I felt nothing break. Vanessa. I kept my voice low, almost gentle. Sit down. There was a bench just inside the entryway. She sat. I stayed standing, not to dominate her, but because sitting would have implied a conversation with a different ending. I'm going to say this once, I said, and I need you to hear all of it. She nodded, eyes wet, hands clasped in her lap. I loved you for 10 years. Completely. I built everything I built with you in mind. Your comfort, your security, your father's security. I put your name on things I didn't have to put your name on because I wanted you to feel like everything I had was also yours. Not as a transaction. Because I loved you. She opened her mouth. I'm not finished, I said, still quiet. She closed it. You sat at our table and told me money meant nothing. That I was transactional. That a man who had nothing material loved you better than I did. You said it with steady hands, Vanessa. You weren't even nervous. I paused. That's what I remember most. How easy it was for you. A tear ran down her face. She didn't wipe it. Marcus left when the money disappeared, she said, like this was new information that changed something. He was never real. You were real, Daniel. You were always. I know I was real, I said. I never doubted that. But you did. And you chose doubt over a decade of evidence. I exhaled slowly. That's not something I can unknow. People make mistakes. Yes. I nodded. And people live with them. She stood up. The composure she'd walked in with was completely gone now. She wasn't performing anymore, and that was the most honest I had seen her in years. Maybe ever. So that's it. Her voice was barely holding. 10 years and that's it? You just replace me and close the door? I looked at her carefully. I didn't replace you, I said. I recovered. There's a difference. Rachel isn't a replacement. She's what happens when someone chooses you clearly, from the beginning, without needing to destroy something first. Vanessa pressed her hand over her mouth. I don't hate you, I said. I want you to understand that. I don't hate you. I'm not standing here enjoying this. But I spent 10 years making sure you were never without, and you spent 7 months deciding that meant nothing. I stepped back slightly. I believe you that you're sorry. I believe you that you're in pain. But sorry doesn't rebuild what you chose to take apart, Vanessa. And your pain doesn't become my responsibility again. She was crying fully now. Not the strategic tears I had seen before in arguments, real ones. The kind that come when the story you told yourself finally stops working. What about my father? She whispered. Gerald's bills were reinstated 3 weeks ago, I said. Every appointment is covered. That was never about him. She looked up, startled. He's a good man, I said simply. He didn't make your choices. She stood there for another long moment. I think part of her was waiting for me to soften. To see her tears and remember something that would pull me back across the line. I remembered everything. That was exactly why I stayed where I was. Goodbye, Vanessa, I said. Not coldly. Not triumphantly. Just, finally. I stepped back. Rachel appeared quietly at the hallway entrance. Not aggressive, not marking territory. Just present. Grounded. Exactly where she belonged. Vanessa looked at her once more. Then looked at me. Then she walked out. I closed the door. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. With the clean, complete feeling of a chapter that had been finished for a long time. Only now, finally, with the last page turned. Rachel came to stand beside me. Didn't say anything for a moment. Just slipped her hand into mine. You okay? She asked. I looked at the closed door. Yeah, I said. And meant it completely. People always expect revenge to look like fire. An explosion. A public humiliation. A moment where the wronged person stands over the wreckage of someone else's life with their arms spread wide, victorious and loud. That's not what it looked like for me. For me it looked like a quiet Sunday morning. Coffee going in the kitchen. Rachel's laugh coming from the other room over something she was reading. Sunlight on the floor. A life that required no performance, no maintenance, no walking on the edges of someone else's shifting moods. That was the revenge. I want to tell you what happened after, Because the story doesn't end at a closed door. Closed doors are just the beginning of what comes next. Vanessa rebuilt slowly. She got a job, a real one, first time in 6 years. Entry level at a marketing firm downtown. Her sister told me she was humbled by it, genuinely humbled, the kind that doesn't come from embarrassment but from finally understanding the weight of what other people carry quietly. She didn't call me again after that Friday evening. Not once. I respected that more than I expected to. Whatever else Vanessa was, and she was many things, some of them very good, some of them things I still don't have clean words for, she had enough dignity to accept what she had been given at that door. She didn't campaign. Didn't send letters. Didn't show up again. She took her consequence and she carried it. That mattered to me. Not enough to change anything. But it mattered. Marcus Cole disappeared completely from our world. He surfaced briefly on social media 3 months later. Photographed at a fundraiser with a woman who had the specific kind of smile that belongs to someone whose husband owns several things. He looked comfortable. Practiced. I looked at the photo for exactly 3 seconds. Then I closed the app and went back to my life. Some people are just weather. They pass through. They do damage. Then they move on to the next place and do it again. There was no version of Marcus Cole that deserved more than 3 seconds of my attention. Gerald called me in November. Not Vanessa, Gerald himself. He had gotten my number from his caretaker, had apparently been sitting on it for weeks before he used it. Daniel. His voice was thinner than I remembered. Older. But the warmth was the same. Gerald. I sat down. I owe you an apology, he said. On behalf of my family. On behalf of... You don't, I said. You have nothing to apologize for. She's my daughter. His voice tightened. What she did to you, a man who treated her better than she deserved, better than most men are capable of, I have to live with that. I was quiet for a moment. She's going through something real right now, I said. The kind that changes people if they let it. Watch her, Gerald. I think she's going to be okay eventually. A long pause on his end. You're a better man than me, he said finally. I'd have been bitter. I was, I said honestly. For about 48 hours. Then I got busy. He laughed, thin and tired but real. The laugh I remembered from Christmas dinners. We spoke for 20 minutes. About his health. About his facility. About nothing important and everything that was. When we hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand for a while. I didn't regret reinstating his care. Not for a single second. Gerald was the innocent edge of a story he never asked to be part of. Whatever I had done, whatever walls I had closed, he was never the target. He was never anything other than a good man with an unlucky relationship to the choices of someone he loved. I understood that feeling. Rachel asked me once, early on, before she fully knew the shape of what I had come from, whether I was still angry. We were sitting at the kitchen table. Late evening. The kind of quiet that exists between people who are comfortable enough not to fill silence. I was never really angry, I said. Not the way people expect. She looked at me. Waiting. Angry is hot, I said. What I felt was cold. Like finally being able to read a map you've been holding upside down for years. She thought about that. Then, do you miss her? Honest question. She was always honest, Rachel. It was the first thing I had noticed about her. Not her looks, not her warmth, though both were real. It was that she never asked questions she didn't actually want the answers to. I miss who I thought she was, I said. The version I built in my head across 10 years. But that version wasn't real. So I'm grieving something that never existed. I paused. That's a different kind of loss. It's quieter. And it ends. Rachel reached across the table and put her hand over mine. Said nothing. That was enough. That was everything. With Vanessa, I always had to explain myself, qualify, justify, defend the way I felt until I was so busy building the case for my own emotions that I forgot to feel them. With Rachel, I just felt them. Out loud. Without trial. That was the difference. That was the whole difference. We got married on a Thursday in early spring. No grand ceremony. 12 people. A room with good light and a judge who had kind eyes. Rachel wore something simple, and she was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, not because of what she was wearing but because of the way she looked at me when she said her vows, like she was stating a fact she had known for a long time and was finally just making official. I had spent 10 years trying to be enough for someone who kept moving the finish line. Standing there, in that small room, I realized I had never actually needed to run that race. I had just needed to find someone who saw the finish line in the same place I did. Someone asked me recently, a friend who knew the full story, whether I regretted any of it. The marriage to Vanessa. The decade. The way it ended. I thought about it honestly. No, I said. He looked surprised. The 10 years made me exact, I said. I know exactly what I will accept and what I won't. I know exactly what loyalty looks like and what it doesn't. I know what it costs to love someone carelessly and what it feels like to be loved carefully. I shrugged. That knowledge has a price. I paid it. It was worth it. He nodded slowly. And Vanessa? I picked up my coffee. Vanessa taught me the most important thing I know, I said. What's that? I thought of the dining table. The steady hands. The rehearsed speech. The door I had closed on a Friday evening without heat or theater. That kindness without boundaries isn't kindness, I said. It's just a slow way of losing yourself. I finished my coffee. Went home. Rachel was in the kitchen, music low, making something that smelled like everything good. She looked up when I walked in. I smiled back. And that was it. That was all of it. That was everything loyalty was worth. This, a quiet room, an honest woman, and a life that finally, completely belonged to me.